Part 2.
Well, let's get into my second movie of this here Stephen King phantasmagorium we got going on over here. I'm going to go into 1989's Pet Sematary. This is a book that I have not read, but I have seen this movie many a time, not as many times as The Mist. But this is a movie that I saw probably for the first time also like on cable or something like that. In the,
I think this is a TNT one, isn't it?
Probably like in the mid 90s, it's probably the first time late 90s. So this is definitely this is a weird movie, I'll say, right at the top of the show. This one is like one of these ones that wouldn't get made in this fashion today. It is, I would say, as far as I can tell, without, like I said, having read the book, quite faithful to the book, but also and a significant budget, but also made in this kind of like very dreamlike, very true to the kind of I hesitate to say the word vibe, but like it has a similar vibe that you would expect from a King adaptation. Like this movie, more than any other one, for whatever reason, I feel like really captures the feeling of this, of like a King story, or a lot of different King stories, which is like they have this very rooted, like true to life, like authenticity, or almost like meanness, and meanness. Unpredictability. Like Stephen King is never scared to go to take things to extremes, right? So it's got this meanness, it's got this unpredictability, but it's still got this odd sense of like dreamy melancholy, and it also that he and having visited Maine and Bangor and like literally some of the physical places where these movies were shot, and like I've stood in some of the places where some scenes in this movie were shot, a very distinct sense of place, which is to say Maine, and in most cases particularly Bangor, Maine, and all this stuff is so unique to King's work, and I feel like this movie, more than any other movie I've seen, really nails that. So that's why I love this movie so much. In my opinion, it might be one of the most faithful, even though I haven't read the book, one of the most faithful King adaptations, in the sense that it really nails the vibe of King's stories, in that sense of, like I said, that sense of place, and that just feeling of like, I will not hesitate to fuck you up, but it also feels like this weird melancholy dream. So
yeah, it also has like these ideas, like you can see that there's like deeper characterization. It doesn't necessarily come out on screen all the time, but you can tell that there's the deeper characterization for the characters if you read the book. Like if you get into the book, there's a lot more to these characters than there are. Like specifically the relationship between the father-in-law and Lewis.
Yeah.
There's probably actually like 25 pages on why they hate each other. Right.
There's a chapter in it probably, which it just doesn't hit here. So not unlike the last two stories we talked about, The Mist less because it is a novella, but like the fact that there are things that just couldn't be fleshed out in the movie that you just have to assume are fleshed out a little deeper in the story, or in the novel. Anyway, so I always love the intro with this, not only the music and the scenes in the cemetery, it's just very kind of like this. I mean, he just nails like the New England Gothic type of thing, which, speaking of Lovecraft, like, obviously 100 years before King, but like not quite 100 years, so 60 to 80 years. Like that sense of place and that kind of thing that has kind of become this New England Gothic kind of feel, just like really, I don't know, really hits home for me in that opening scene. You get Chekhov's truck driving by pretty early on. Like there's a lot of ideas about this idea of this road being very dangerous, which is kind of interesting because it's not really the road that's dangerous. It's the degenerate truck drivers that drive the road more than the actual road themselves. But for the most part, they're like kind of nameless and faceless most of the time.
Yeah. And they're mostly, and I think it's more in the book, but it's mostly about like the symbolism of the encroachment of American culture in general. Yeah. Because it's Americans who ran this road through this Native American territory. It's the Americans who are ripping the oil out of the ground and barreling it down this road. Like, and the road is killing pets and people and just like everything in its path, it just destroys.
It doesn't matter. Everyone is going to fall victim to progress at some point, right? So you have Rachel and Lewis, this young married couple, and they show up at their new house with their kids, Ellie, their young daughter, who I'm going to say is 6, and Gage, who is like kind of a toddler. And then they have their cat, Winston Churchill, which they call Church. Fred Gwynn, he lives across the road. And pretty early on, I mean, not pretty early on, quite early on, he saves Gage, the toddler, from getting just mushed on the road. And you'd think that would have been like a pretty scary, good lesson for them to learn, but nah. I couldn't help but think, you drive by like things like signs say like slow down, my daddy works here, or like slow down, children at play, or whatever. There should have been a sign here that says like, slow down, I don't watch my kids.
Right.
Like, I just let them wander into the street. Slow down, I'm a bad parent.
Yeah. But it's just also the child yearns for the road. You can't help it. He yearns for the road.
He does. He's desperate to get mushed. He wants rubber to just be running over his body at any one given time.
I mean, it is actually, I don't know how much it gets alluded to throughout the film, but it is in kind of like in the background and set dressing that he does love trucks. Like he has a bunch of trucks in his room and shit. So he loves trucks and he wants to be close to the trucks. He yearns for the trucks, but the trucks he doesn't understand. They don't know him.
Yeah. The trucks don't have the same type of interest in him as he has in the trucks. Right. The trucks are thirsty for his little baby blood. And Judd saves him from it early on, but Judd's not always there. Judd is such an iconic horror character, maybe the most recognizable, not only the most recognizable character aside from The Shining, in Stephen King film adaptation, but I would argue perhaps the most iconic Mainer in pop culture.
Yeah, it's got to be the most iconic Mainer.
Yeah, and the voice, and the accent, which we'll get into, is just so memorable. So we should say, right? There's a couple different folks. So like Dale Midkiff plays Lewis. The Creed family is their last name. But like I'll be honest with you, I couldn't think of anything else he was in. He's in it
for good reason.
Yeah, he's not great. He's the weakest part of this movie, although it kind of works because of this like dreamy melancholy, almost like melodrama type of thing that you see in some King adaptations, and it works in this. So like his lackluster performance doesn't stand out as much as it probably should, but he's genuinely not great. But it works because he comes across as just this like clueless academic that like just doesn't understand the real world and doesn't understand the harshness and the reality that lurks like right below the surface. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's been just shrouded in ignorance his whole life and is now being exposed to the not even evil as much as like the indifference of the earth.
Yeah,
you know,
the indifference, the seriousness of it. Because like the one thing that stands out, he does two things that are very weird as an actor. I mean, just for the tone of this film. One, and this kind of helps to that dreamlike thing you're saying, is that a lot of the times he's just staring off into space. Like he's just like, and that kind of feels kind of dreamlike because like he's not necessarily participating in the world around him. The other one though is that he is cartoonishly buffoonish with the pratfalls he takes. Like, and he takes at least 4 pratfalls through the film that are just like, they're tension breaking, but also it's just like, maybe we shouldn't break the tension at this point with a goof 'em up fall. It's just the one, I think the one that sticks out to me, I believe it's right after Rachel's killed and he wakes up in bed, and the way he falls out of bed, he tumbles out of bed, but he also hits his head on the nightstand as he comes out of bed. It's just like, what the hell, Charlie Chaplin, like goof ass Buster Keaton shit are you doing? Your wife is dead, you fool.
So I mean, we won't go through a whole bunch of the cast because there's a lot of them are pretty, they do a fine job, but they're not like, they don't play huge characters, or, you know, this is a pretty small core cast, although other people do pop up. You know, it's the immediate family, like I said, the 4 plus the cat, and then Judd Crandall, which is Fred Gwynn, who obviously, for those of you who are not familiar with Fred Gwynn, extremely recognizable. Actually, most people might recognize him for this. But he's Herman Munster in the original run of the Munsters. Like, that's what most people would probably remember him from. He's also the judge in My Cousin Vinny, which I always forget, which is fucking great. Yeah. So they move into the house. Like I said, Judd saves the kid. There's a creepy path that leads from the house, and they ask about it, and Judd's just kind of like, "Oh, don't worry about that path," you know. You get introduced to Missy, the housekeeper, and she weird as fuck. She's you know, that's intense, you know, like kind of standoffish, Mainer accent, the whole thing. Lewis is a doctor, and he teaches at like the local college, but he's a medical doctor, but I would assume at like a teaching hospital or a teaching, you know, a college setting kind of thing.
Season 8 of Scrubs.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. Rachel is his wife. Rachel is a little much, I will say. She is kind of childish, I would say, like childlike in her behavior. They really both are. Like, they both feel like children raising children in a lot of ways. Ellie is the daughter. Like I said, she's maybe 5 or 6. She knows, Ellie has like the sixth sense, and literally later on you'll learn that she does, but she knows that God is an asshole. Like, that's the thing you know about it. Like, she gets it, right? Intuitively as a child, she knows that God is an asshole. She is very connected to the cat church, and Dad makes this promise that church will be okay. Church is going in to get neutered, and Judd, right off the bat, Judd is like they become pretty connected right off the bat. He is their almost shaman in a way, or they're like, he shows them kind of this way to live in this environment, in this kind of like rural environment. So they really lean on him for a lot of things. And he's like, hey, you know, the cat won't stray as much if you get the cat neutered. So they're like, okay, we're going to do that. So the kids bring, so this is at the school. Lewis is at the school, and a bunch of the students bring in a kid who has been hit by a truck. People get hit. Animals get hit. It's like a daily basis, you know, and they don't put up any signs. There's not a stop sign, not a stoplight, nothing. This road is like a death trap. Right. And there's a college age student who gets hit by a truck. And they bring him in, and Lewis is, the kind of doctor on staff. I mean, his brains are on the outside. Things aren't looking good. And everyone thinks he's dead. And Lewis is like, fuck, we lost him, kind of thing. And then he comes back and he starts to say some cryptic shit to Lewis about the soil and all the stuff, like coming back to Lewis. And then he dies. And then the kid, who we come to learn, his name is
Pascal.
Pascal, yeah. Comes back to Lewis in his dream and takes him to the pet cemetery in his dream. Like, eventually Judd takes them there, shows them, and has this like really borderline inappropriate interaction with the kids. Like, if somebody had this type of like interaction with my children, explaining death to them, I'd be like, we just met, my dude. Like, you're really overstepping some bounds here. But like, again, this is where like Lewis and Rachel really feel like just kids raising kids kind of thing.
Yeah. In a way, Judd is right, because he's just trying to get them exposed to the indifference of the world as quick as possible.
Right.
Because otherwise they're going to be in trouble. But on the other hand, the parents would absolutely be right to just like, hey, dude, like, that's not what we're teaching our kids. Like, back off. Yeah. What are you doing? But they don't, because they don't have, they're not grounded that way.
No, they don't have really a lot of agency as parents. And like, listen, as parents of young kids, like I've had this conversation with like family members where like I have family members that are telling my kids like, when you die, you become an angel. And I'm like, don't say that to my kids. No. Like, don't say made up shit to my kids. And also don't tell my kids there's hell. Hell doesn't exist. Don't fucking tell them that, So like, I get that. But like Lewis, and so Rachel specifically has like some real issues around death. Like, she has not, as an adult, come to terms with like the reality of what death is and all that stuff. We come to realize later why that's the case. And Lewis is just like a dud. Like, he just doesn't. Here's why I think Lewis's character, despite his indifference and just like seemingly empty brain at some point, that I actually think it makes sense in a lot of ways, is because he's a doctor. And I have friends who are doctors or were medical students, that some of them became doctors, some of them didn't. To be a successful doctor, especially certain types of doctors, like one particular friend of mine who became a surgeon, he's a sociopath. Like, I just know that he is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the fact that he's able to just on a daily basis cut people open and remove organs and then go home and watch football and have some beer, like, you know what I mean? You kind of have to have a disconnect, right?
Yeah. There's a strong disconnect that like normal people can't associate with. Like, with the same way, like a lot of the time soldiers will be like, oh, you'll never know what it's like. And it's like, fair enough. Yeah. But like surgeons are the same way, because they experience the same thing over and over of doing something that seems insanely barbaric to us. But it just becomes second nature to them. I think it's also morgue workers that get like fucking weird like that.
Probably morticians too, to a certain extent. I mean, that's a corpse, so for some reason that's like less offensive to me, and maybe that's because I'm a little bit of a sociopath. I don't know, but like, so I just know, like, in this instance, and the scene that really hammered this home to me is when Lewis sees the kid with his brains out. Like, if I go to work one day, now I work in marketing, so this is not relevant.
Right. Yeah.
But like, if I went to work one day and like I ended up seeing somebody's brains, I'm not going to sleep real good that night.
No,
you know,
they'll bug
but like Lewis, bug you, be a real bugaboo. But like Lewis comes home, sleeps like a fucking baby, falls asleep on his back like a psychopath. Who sleeps on their back? First of all, psycho. But anyway, So, Judd is like, starts to suggest that there's another place beyond. He's talking about like where he's talking to Lewis at this point, but there's a place beyond the pet cemetery where the ground sours, right? And he tells him like, don't go there. And the ghost of the kid who dies with his brains out, Pascal, is like even if you think you got to go there, don't go there. Well, at this point, it's very cryptic. We don't know why he would say that. But then he wakes up in the morning and his feet are all muddy. And you're like, oh, okay, he was actually there in some capacity, right? Forward to Halloween, and Lewis won't go to Rachel's family. We go to like Halloween, whatever. We're going a little bit beyond that actually at this point. So I'll skip ahead just for the sake. Like this movie, I could probably talk about this movie for 2 hours. I can't do that. So we're gonna skip ahead to Thanksgiving, and he won't go to Rachel's families because something is going on between Rachel's family and him. You mentioned it, like we don't really get it super properly explained, but suffice to say, Rachel's family, you get the idea Rachel comes from a well-off family. And she does, like you figure that out. They live in like a fucking mansion. And Lewis is like not good enough for them or whatever, but like he doesn't feel like he's part of the family, and Rachel's dad specifically is not into him. So they go for Thanksgiving. Lewis stays back at the house. Church gets hit on the road. Judd calls him up and says, hey, bud, should come over here. The cat's dead. They come over. They find that that's the case. And then they take him out to the pet cemetery, and they're really bummed because Ellie is very attached to this cat. And Judd's like, all right, well, let's take him out. Let's go bury him at the pet cemetery. So they go down there, and they have this area that's beyond the pet cemetery that is like this big giant like tangle of branches. And they hike over this, it's almost like this portal, if you will, where it's like you don't know it at the time, but you got to like don't look down, keep marching forward. It's almost like when you get onto, I'm reading Harry Potter with my kids, and it's like whatever platform 9 3/4 or whatever it is in Harry Potter. It's you just got to have faith. You got to go right through it, and then you'll go to the other side. Well, this is kind of like that. They go to the other side, and Judd just keeps going like, won't be longer now. Won't be much longer now.
Not too much farther now.
Yeah, won't be too much farther now. And they just keep just climbing over fucking all this stuff. They finally get him to this Indian burial ground, which is, he's very cryptic about why. And this is the dream-like thing that if they didn't nail this wouldn't work at all. But they really do. Because you're like, you got Judd. He's a weird old fucker. He's Herman Munster. He looks like Herman Munster. You know what I mean? Like to the viewer. So you're like, who's this creepy old guy? He got this Maine accent. He's like talking like this, talking like no one else in the family. He takes him out there, and Lewis is just following him like a puppy. And you're like, why is Lewis doing this? Why is Judd doing this? But it's just this very dreamlike sequence, almost like this weird, like quest, kind of like fantasy quest that they're on. Eventually, Judd repeats the thing that Pascal said in the dream, which is something about, after they suffice to say, they bury the cat at the burial ground. Then they go back. And he's like, what the fuck was that all about? Like they kind of come back to the house, and now they're like almost coming to their senses. Like they were almost under, I want to say under some sort of spell, but it was this very dreamlike sequence. And then they get back, and Lewis is like, what did we just do? And that's when Judd says this sentence that is what Pascal said to him earlier, which is this thing about like a soil of a man's heart is stonier or whatever, is basically saying like, men do dumb things and we don't know why, we're like almost like we're susceptible to this like evil leeching into us or something. So Church comes back, is raised from the dead, and Church delivers the most devastating cat jump scare in the history of cinema. Like going back to Uninvited, we know cats love to jump scare people.
Hell yeah.
But this is the most devastating jump scare ever. Literally sends him flying, scratches his face. Later on when he tries to give it food, like Church is just bringing it here.
Church is a real asshole. I mean, not that Church wasn't already jump scaring before he was dead, but now he's jump scaring as he's dead, and he's scratching, and he's dropping dead mice in the bathtub. It's just a real asshole of a cat.
Yeah, he throws a rat in the bathtub with him, and like Lewis, like I get it, that's gross, but like he has a pretty cartoonish response.
Yeah, I have to say, whatever it is, I don't know, like I don't know if it's Mary Lambert or whatever it is, but she captured like one of the best animal performances and one of the best baby performances in film. It just for this goofy kind of horror movie. She gets like these incredible performances out of the cat and out of Miko Hughes, who plays Gage. And it's like, how did you do that? But then not like she went on to direct fucking Megaconda versus Gatoroid.
Yeah.
Like how do you do this to end up there? That doesn't make sense to me. She's also like, she directed a whole bunch of like Madonna's music videos. Like that's kind of like, that's kind of where she got her start. She was a music video director. She did like Madonna and Janet Jackson and a whole bunch of other stuff. And like Chris Isaac. So like,
oh God, Chris Isaac. Did he do that? What was that fucking Chris Isaac one in the desert? That fucking music video.
I think she did.
Anyway, Judd explains how he learned about the pet cemetery when he was a kid and his dog and all this stuff. His dog came back to life and he wasn't right and shit's not right. When somebody goes into the pet cemetery, like I said, Church, we talked about Church pranks Lewis with this rat in the tub. And then shit starts to kind of escalate here. Missy ends up hanging herself. She's talking about her stomach being fucked up, and Lewis is like, I can help you out. I'm a doctor. And she's like, oh, it'll pass, blah, blah, blah. Missy ends up hanging herself. And then you get Stephen King as a cameo as the priest at Missy's funeral. And that spot, actually, that exact spot, that grave where they did the ceremony there, and then walking up the hill and everything where Gage's later on, spoiler alert, Gage's tombstone is. We actually visited that exact spot. Whenever we were in Maine, which is pretty cool.
This is where we buried Missy, and she was still banging on the coffin.
Yeah. Well, and that's also where the lamb grave that I think I showed when we did the Stephen King episode with Georgie, like Georgie's grave is supposed to be in that too, which you think he got the inspiration for Georgie from it. But in any case, Rachel, you start to get this idea of where Rachel has all these issues with death and guilt because her sister had some sort of I forget what the disease was, but her name was Zelda, and she was kind of kept in the back room. They like treated her as kind of like a leper because she had some sort of like degenerative kind of disease, and it's such a creepy kind of out of nowhere scene. And the person that like plays Zelda is like so animated, it's so cartoonish and over the top. And the prosthetics and stuff, it's really creepy. But Lewis, as a doctor, just comforts her with Valium. Is like, don't worry, you take Valium now. So he just drugs her like, hey, you'll be fine. So they're having a picnic with Ed Gwynn, as one does. And there's this dirty truck.
Before we get there, I just wanted to point out one scene that like I think it's this film is actually really quotable. That there's a bunch of quotes, especially by Fred Gwynn. But there's a scene between him and Lewis, and they're sitting at the table having a beer, and it's after, I believe it's after Church has been resurrected, and Lewis asks Judd, "Have you ever buried a person there?" And, and just his reaction is to knock all the beer bottles on the ground,
fumbles them all. His big giant monster hands. He's like, just knocks all the Budweiser bottles down.
Yeah, and his line is, "Christ on his throne, no." It's just, I just haven't heard Christ on his throne as like as a expletive.
That's the equivalent of my mom saying my mom's favorite one is Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I grew up in a Jesus, Mary, and Joseph house. I didn't grow up in a Christ on his throne house.
One of my other ones my grandmother likes to do is Judas Priest. I thought that was a good one. Anyway, so yeah, they're having a picnic out there with Judd and this dirty trucker, coming over the hill, listening to the Ramones like a real degen.
Hell yeah.
And he's just getting ready to mush a kid, like you can just tell. And the wind lures Gage. He's holding this is a very dreamlike sequence as well. And he's holding a kite. He's flying a kite, and he starts getting pulled towards the road, and then he's like, save him. He's running, and like Lewis is a mathlete, not an athlete, right? So like he's not getting there in time, and the truck just unalives Gage like real hard right in the middle of the street. And you don't see it, right? But you see everyone screaming, and you see the direction from the point of view from Gage.
Yeah. You also get the sound design of tires running over. Like there's a serious bunch of dump, and it's like, ugh.
yeah. It's a rough scene. And then fast forward to the funeral of Gage, and Rachel's dad just whips Lewis's ass at the funeral, just beats his ass.
Again, another quotable line. He's like, you stinking shit, you killer of children, and then just beats his ass wholesale.
Just beats his ass at the funeral. And like at this point, listen, I've had enough emotional devastation. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna make light of the whole thing, but it is a rough scene. Yeah, this movie just like, again, this is like what people, I think, really what I love about Stephen King is like the movies I talk about are like just like unpredictable, mean, unhinged. Stephen King is never afraid to go there.
No.
Like he is just a sadistic son of a bitch. Like he'll just take you there in a second.
Yeah. Like they knock the fucking coffin, in their fight. They knock the coffin over, and it opens up, and you see the little dead kid's hand. Like there's no way that wasn't a detail in the original book. So like, just brutal. Upsetting.
Just brutal shit, right? Just the worst thing you can think of that would happen, right? So anyway, again, Ellie, the sister, knows that God is an asshole and just like gives her, dad some thinkies about how God is an asshole and blah, blah, blah. Judd comes over and warns Lewis. He's like, don't bury that kid. Like, don't you do it. And tells him a story about a local kid who, when he was young, did get buried and got turned into a zombie Timmy. And then him and his dad got like burned in a house. It's a whole sequence. I'm not going to get into the details of it for the sake of time, but it's a whole damn thing. So this has happened again. He's like, no, I remember how I said nobody would do that. They did do it. It went poorly. Don't do it. And this is where you get, probably the most iconic line or memorable line of it, which is this: sometimes dead is better. And he says it a lot of times. Yeah. His thick Maine accent about, well, sometimes dead is better. And Judd is like convinced at this point that he was responsible. Like he took them to bury the cat. And then that's what brought this whole evil on their family. And ultimately he's responsible for Gage dying. Ellie is having these like prophetic dreams. I mentioned how she knows God's an asshole and she knows what's going on. She starts to like be able to pick up on the idea that Lewis is going to take Gage and bury him, and Gage is going to come back, and she knows something bad's going to happen. Rachel and Ellie go to Chicago to visit her parents, and Lewis stays behind. He like has this little scene where he makes up with the dad. It's kind of inconsequential. But at this point, you start to realize Lewis has fucking lost it. And he goes out, digs up Gage in the graveyard. Like he's fucking fully unhinged at this point. Rachel starts to believe Ellie's dreams because she's starting to know details of shit she shouldn't know. And she keeps trying to call Lewis. There's no answer. Calls Judd. And Judd immediately knows what's happening. Like he knows that Lewis took Gage to bury him in the pet cemetery. And Rachel is starting to have dreams about Zelda And these are some of the most memorable scenes in the movie. I think for a lot of people, like, they're not necessarily my favorite. For a lot of people, the Zelda scenes of Zelda being the tortured, diseased sister in the back room that, like, Rachel was like happy died and all this stuff. She feels all this guilt for. She keeps having these flashbacks of like Zelda popping up and chasing her around and saying wild shit to her are pretty memorable, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like the character design and everything. And it's like at the time, I believe what Zelda suffers from is spina bifida.
Oh, I thought it was like spinal meningitis or something.
It might be. I feel like spinal meningitis. Yeah. I feel like spinal meningitis kills you pretty quickly, but maybe it is that. I don't know. But yeah.
My dad used to call me spina bifida, was like a pet name. He used to say when we were kids. It's pretty fucking weird. Huh?
Yeah.
He used to say spina bifida. He used to like say, "Shut up, spina bifida." Like that was like a little like fat, like joking insult.
He probably just meant scoliosis and he didn't know it.
I know, but until you just said that, I didn't know spina bifida was like a real thing.
Yeah. I think that's what she suffers from, because like it's something that like really hinders like your bone, or like twists your bone growth in a way.
Yeah,
that,
she's
like,
all like contorted and shit. Yeah, it's no good.
Yeah, so I think that's that's the disease that she suffered from, and like that's why they just kind of like locked her away in a room, and that's a very waspy thing to do. You know, totally. A very Kennedy thing to do is to hide hide the shame of your family away.
Except for with the Kennedys, that's because they're inbred. But similar situation.
So, still inbred, but you got to send those inbreds off to the fucking loony farm to get their brains dug out.
Put them in the attic.
Yep.
So Lewis does, as you would expect, everyone knows is going to happen. He does bury Gage at the old burial ground, and Rachel is led back. It's Pascal's ghost. He's kind of being the guide, right? He's like bringing her into the mix, trying to save the situation. He's like the friendly ghost situation, whereas the sour ground, if you will, of the land beyond the pet cemetery is obviously, pulling Lewis in. So it's this race against the clock a little bit type of thing. She crashes a car. You get this sense, like I said, of the good and evil spirits really working at odds with one another, because it's like, oh, now she crashes the car, but then Pascal's like continuing to help her get there. This is a question. So Lewis is going back and he's carrying Gage's corpse, and he's carrying up over the branches and all that stuff. And there's a little like rock that and a face pops out of it. You know what I'm talking about? Who the fuck is that? I've watched this movie a few times, and I don't know if I just kind of missed this point or whatever, but I was like, who is that like face that it's like a distorted ghost face kind of thing that pops out of the rocks on his way to the burial site? I was like, is it Pascal? Like, I thought it was for a minute, but it doesn't look like him. And this is the first time I really paid close enough attention and like actually was like, wait a second, let me try to make sense of who this is.
I
didn't look it up. I forgot to look it up.
Was it the ghost of Tim?
Was it?
I don't know.
Yeah. Zombie Tim?
I always thought it was Pascal. I thought it was Pascal because I didn't pay attention. So
yeah, it didn't look like Pascal. I guess that's what I was assuming in the past. But anyway,
maybe
somebody out there knows.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the things that's lost in translation, because like there's a whole thing about like the Wendigo is like kind of the villain of this story in the book, and I think Tim was supposed to be like a little bit more evil than he is, but maybe it was just a thing that because we never actually get a good look at Tim aside from him clawing at his face.
Yeah, you don't really too much, right?
Yeah, I thought it was either Tim or Pascal. So yeah, I could be wrong.
In the way it translates in this, and if like the whole Wendigo thing comes up more in the book, I mean, in the movie, you really just kind of get this idea that it's like some sort of evil spirit. That's really vaguely what it comes across as. As you might imagine, Gage pops up. Rachel ends up hitchhiking home with a truck driver, like a truck driver, not unlike somebody who would have ran over a child. But zombie Gage gets ends up going back and getting into Daddy's doctor bag and grabs himself a little scalpel, as one does. So Rachel arrives home and hears something that sounds like Zelda, like calling her name. So her sister that died. And then Gage laughing. Rachel goes over. Gage has went into Judd's house. I think Rachel. Yeah, Rachel goes. I think Gage is already off Judd at this point.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. Gage is already off Judd. Like that's the first person he kills, and it's like I think that's
you get the muddy footprints.
Mm-hmm.
You know that because Judd passes out on the front porch drinking a couple 2 Tree Buds.
Yeah.
Wakes up and is like, fuck, muddy little baby footprints.
Little baby kid. Baby kid got in the house. Can't have baby kid running around the house.
Shouldn't have left the door unlocked for baby kid to come over his muddy shows.
He got his damn muddy shoes all over the bed.
Rachel goes in, because Gage is in the upstairs bedroom, and Gage tells her that that he brought her something, and then he's got the scalpel.
Right.
And Rachel like hugs her, and then he stabs her. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Rachel's dead at this point.
Yeah. She pretty much like dies off screen, like, cause it's a quick cut to like her screaming. And then that's when we wake up to another Lewis pratfall. It's the death of Judd. That's the brutal one where like he cuts his Achilles tendon.
That's the Achilles tendon cut. Yeah. I forgot to write it down. That's one of the most memorable ones. Cause he slashes the Achilles tendon with the scalpel.
Right. And then he gives him the Joker fucking cut across the mouth. And then he leans
I was thinking that was Lewis, but yeah. Sorry, I was thinking that was Rachel, but it's Judd.
Yeah, it's Judd. And then he leans down and bites Judd's neck out, and it's just like, ugh. But then also, I just kind of like it's a brutal scene, but also I kind of laugh at it because it's like the directing of like, okay, Miko, now you got to lay your head into Fred Gwynn's neck, like lay your head down on this old man's neck.
Pretend to rip out his jugular.
Yeah, which they can't even like explain that to a kid. It's just like put your face into his neck.
yeah, that was a weird day on set. Lewis, you said the whole pratfall thing. He wakes up, he finds the muddy footprints as well, and the doctor bag. The scalpel's gone. He's like, oh no, something bad's going on. He gets a call from Gage. And this is when Gage is doing the like, come play with me, daddy. First I play with Judd, and then I play with mommy. We had a good time. Now I want to play with you. But like I said, it's upsetting because this is his dead child, right? So no good. This is bad news. I really want to read this story. I got to assume this is just a fucking brutal story to get through.
Yeah.
But so this is when Lewis he's got morphine. So he's like, I'm gonna get some syringes full of some sedative, and this is how I'm gonna subdue Gage, right? So he goes over to Judd's house, and he has one last kind of run in with Church, and he distracts the cat, and then kills it, with a shot of the sedative. And then he heads into the house, and the Gage is still like just fucking with him at this point. Lewis is like going around the house, and he finds his dead wife in the attic. That's she's like hanging by her neck. It's not good, right? This is, like I said, things are really falling apart for Lewis at this point. Gage shoots down from the attic in like a borderline cartoonish, like I remember the first time I saw this movie, I'm like a Superman dive from the attic type situation. Yeah,
it's full on header.
Yeah, which he's dead, so he's not feeling any pain, right? So I get the idea, but it's aggressive. It's not the move you're expecting him to make. But ultimately, Lewis does get the syringe out and sticks it into Gage, and it doesn't like kill him right away. But the scene that always sticks with me, and my brother, my cousin, I quote this scene quite often for whatever reason, is after he sticks the syringe into Gage. Gage is like, not fair.
Yeah.
Not fair.
It's just like,
it's such an off-putting, weird line.
Yeah.
He's like, not fair.
Which you can,
he's like a toddler. Right.
Yeah. Like on the one hand, like kids say that kind of shit all the time, but on the other hand, it feels like something else is saying it. Like, yeah, like just like this Wendigo or whatever is, like upset at modern medicine. Like, oh,
he's like, you shut down the body.
Yeah.
Don't morphine me, bro.
Don't OD me. That's not cool. I love the next shot. I swear to God, this has to be something that they captured in behind the scenes, because it shows the actor like stumbling backwards. The little kid, he stumbles backwards, and then he falls and hits his head for real.
I honestly think he does. Like, this was just like a scene that happened and they got it on and they just cut it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something.
I really think you're right.
Yeah, because like there's no lighting. The thing that makes me realize that it has to be something behind the scenes that they just put in later is it looks like they were probably lighting the scene to have him fall down. But like there's no lighting in that scene, and it's all dark, and the only lighting is coming in from the window. So it was just, they were filming the little kid wandering around in the hallway, getting ready for the scene. And then he just stumbles and bangs his head. And they're like, holy shit, that's great. Like, we're going to keep that.
Yeah. They were just like, let's keep this kid getting CTE scene in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. It's, the whole thing is upsetting. The whole end of this movie is upsetting. And then not fair. Just whatever really sticks, always stuck with me. And then at this point, he kills Gage fucking, but he gave him the morphine. Lewis just starts torching the house. And he grabs Rachel's body, and like Pascal's just watching at this point, the brain ghost from earlier. And he tells, he's like apologizing to Lewis, and he's like, don't you fucking think about it. Don't you do it, you rat fuck. Don't you bury your wife in the fucking pet cemetery. Like, you don't be an idiot. And Lewis is like, no, I just messed up last time. Like, it's gonna be fine this time.
Yeah, this time I waited too long.
I promise it's gonna work. Like, it's gonna work this time.
Yeah.
And he's like, she just died. Like, her brain's not been dead long ago. Meanwhile, you got to hike like a fucking mile into the woods. You know what I mean?
And
like,
you
remember
been murdered brutally. Like, it's not like her body's in good shape anyway.
No, she's all fucked up. Yeah. And he's got to carry her fucking a mile into the woods.
Yeah. But like, in his logic, the cat was already an asshole, so that made sense. And Gage, well, he had already been like embalmed and had his organs taken out. So of course that's bad. That's bad news. But Rachel,
ain't gonna be great.
Rachel, she was a good person, and then I got her fresh. So this will work just fine.
Yeah, this is obviously going to work great. And Lewis is like warning him, but he's like, nah, I'm past this, right? I'm going to do it. So, assumed it's happened. He's buried his wife. Lewis is just like sitting there playing solitaire. And Rachel comes, jaunting through the door. And she's like, hey, baby, and they both start hugging and kissing. And then you kind of see her face, and just like shit's fucked up. She's all gooing out, right? She's in bad shape. And as they're like smooching, she reaches for a knife, and and assumedly, stabs him. Because Lewis is a fucking moron and didn't learn his lesson literally 2 times, and now he's like, probably 2. Come on, it went horribly the first 2 times. It's obviously going to go pretty well this third time, but it doesn't. And Lewis ultimately gets what everybody expected him to get. So
yeah,
and that's it, Jeans guys.
It's a real 80s ending too, because it's just her picking up the knife and then like a cut to black. You know, it's just I'll note that this is one of the few screenplays that King also wrote. Like there's a lot that are adaptations of his work, but this one he also wrote the screenplay for. So he made a lot of the decisions of like what actually went in and I think that helps preserve why this one's feels more authentic to King, because he was making the decisions.
Yeah. And the pacing is really, really great in this movie. This is the one that I would say, like, yeah, there's some stuff we had mentioned. There's not much between the father and Lewis, Rachel's father and Lewis. So there's some things you just got to assume. But for the most part, there's not a bunch of jumps of logic. Like, it doesn't feel like a book being adapted for the most part. It feels like a well-paced movie,
right?
Script for the most part. You know, I think Gerald's Game, there's some stuff that gets a little bit lost there. Dead Zone, there's definitely some stuff that gets lost.
Yeah,
but like this, I feel like is pretty even keeled. Doesn't feel like there's big like jumps in time or anything that happen.
Well, I mean, there are big jumps in time because they go from one thing to Thanksgiving, but it's not
doesn't feel like anything's missing in this story.
Right? Yeah, it's not unconnected in a way. Like it makes it's a proper progression that makes a lot of sense. That it's overall it's a good put together movie. It's just like a lot of the performances are like they come off silly, which it helps the film not feel as dour as it would be with all the dead kid stuff.
Really depressing if shit wasn't kind of silly.
Yeah.
So like, but that's why I kind of like it. It's like a lot of King stuff has very deliberately injected moments of levity, and just straight out like dick and fart jokes sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like I feel like this is fairly appropriate. And I don't know. I need to read the source material, but like having read enough King to know that he injects that type of thing in it. And I like that it's the dreaminess and the way it was directed. And we didn't talk too much about the direction or the screenplay or anything like that for you know, lack of time, but overall it was competently directed, despite the fact that Mary Lambert really didn't do anything else of consequence in her directing career. But like, it definitely felt like this was something that like had a huge amount of King influence.
Yeah.
And for that reason, like played to the strengths of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. This feels like, they didn't necessarily give him the budget that would have done the best job, which is why they didn't really hire, the name actors for
top tier performers.
Yeah. But like,
although Fred Gwynn's fucking he kills it.
Oh yeah. Like Fred Gwynn, I wouldn't replace. Like that Miko Hughes is like for a baby is, good. So yeah. It's really just like Rachel and Lewis that feel weird, but like in their weirdness, it keeps
also Ellie not great. I mean, child fine. Performance.
Yeah.
Child performance. She mediocre child performance is fine. Serviceable child performance. But there's a couple times with the cries where I'm like, do better, child.
I do like when she talks about church stinking though. Just the way just the way he's like, I don't like him around. He stinks too much no more. I'll spend my entire allowance to get him a bath because he smells bad.
Yeah, he's dead. Sorry, he dead.
But yeah, and even the character of Pascal, like I know this is way later, but Pascal reminds me of the movie The Frighteners. The way Michael J. Fox has
Seth.
Yeah. just the way he had.
Oh, I was going to say Seth Green, but that's because I'm thinking of
Idle Hands.
What's the fuck?
You're thinking Idle Hands.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of the same, vein. But like, yeah, Michael J. Fox has these ghosts that are only tangentially related to him, following him around and harassing him. And that feels like what Pascal is. Like, the Lewis and Pascal only met in the hospital. They weren't longtime friends or anything. He didn't, he didn't contribute to his death. And, so it's like, yeah, okay. He's just following him around and like giving him these visions.
Well, it's very briefly mentioned of like, oh, it's the scene with Ellie, and she's like, because he died when she was present, and she's like trying to say the word and she can't pronounce it, and then
she calls it
ultimately
Pascal.
comes out. It's like, but not even the name, but like the thing that happened when his soul changed, when he crossed over or whatever. It kind of very briefly explains the connection between Lewis and Pascal, but I got to assume in the story that was fleshed out more.
Yeah, because also it's alluded that Rachel has the Shining, because I mean, as it is like, some characters throughout all of King's books have the Shining in some way. So I think it's alluded to.
And Ellie does, obviously, in some capacity too.
Yeah. But otherwise, this version is far, far superior to that 2019 remake. That one,
I didn't even make it the way through. I really watched the first like 20 minutes of it, and I was like, this is dog shit.
Yeah. I like the opening like kid funeral parade. That's kind of like a fun, visual. But otherwise, that
fun's the word, I would use.
But otherwise, like they try so hard to put their like serious pants on. We're making a serious, scary movie, and it's going to be slick, and it's going to be scary, and you're going to shit your pants. Like, ugh, nah.
No, sucks ass. Maybe I'll feel different in 10 years, but right now it feels like it really sucks ass.
I doubt you will.
Probably not. All right, Pet Cemeteryans, guys. 3 down, 1 to go.
That means it's time for the dead zone.
For the dead zone. It sounds like a shitty. This is a movie that absolutely suffers from a shit title, and the book for that matter too. Like the book, whatever. It's a Stephen King book. Everyone's gonna read it. It was a hugely successful novel because it's fucking Stephen King at like the height of Stephen Kinginess. But as far as the movie's concerned, this is one that just. Oh man, it's just such a shit title. Yeah,
it's a shit title because they don't really necessarily get into why things are called the Dead Zone. Like there's a real brief scene that I think like the movie has like maybe 30 minutes left, and it's not even the description from the book. Like the book Dead Zone is the part of the brain that's activated by the accident. Whereas they re-explain something else, like the dead zone is in the visions. That's the period that, fucking Christopher Walken Johnny can correct things. And it's like, all right, whatever.
This is like Dead Zone. The Dead Zone sounds like a B-side, forgotten B-side track from like a Power Man 5000 album or something.
I guess them. Maybe Static.
Yeah,
maybe Static X. Maybe Static X.
Okay, fine. Yeah, it would have been something space related if it was Power Man.
Right.
5000.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's just the first band that came to my head for some reason.
If you want to call it like the Dead Satellite, maybe.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the lead singer of Power Man 5000 is getting in directing now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he is far worse than his brother.
No shit. What's his fucking name? What's his brother's name?
Well, his brother's Rob Zombie.
Oh, Rob Zombie. Never mind. I was thinking of what's the piece of shit guy? Oh my god, all I could think of is Drowning Pool. But what's the piece of shit band? The guy with the fucking makeup and shit that we watched one of his movies and he's dog shit. Oh, come on. He was the lead singer of the band. It was like a fucking...
Cradle of Filth.
Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, you're thinking of Danny Filth.
Danny Filth. That's what I was getting mixed up. I was thinking his brother was Danny Filth, but yeah, you're right. His brother's Rob Zombie.
Sorry, I listen to a lot of makeup bands, so when you say the piece of shit from the makeup band, I'm like, that's a lot of them. Most of them all
well,
have,
and I should have known because of Rob Zombie and his brother both have that like affinity for goggles. Like I should have recognized that. They both love a steampunk looking pair of fucking. It's like somewhere between steampunk and ski goggles. Like it's somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, steampunk, space. It's all it's all there.
Yeah,
gotta protect your eyes when you're traveling in the dead zone.
Driving a fucking Cadillac convertible through the dead zone.
Oh yeah, and our patron Ron would like to point out that another makeup band, Orgy, is on tour. I actually saw that on Facebook.
Really? Does the guy still hold his microphone like this? Like, remember how he used to do that?
Yeah, probably.
I remember being, I don't know, fucking 13 or whatever when Orgy came out, and just watching him hold his microphone like that, and I was like, that's kind of a badass way to hold a microphone.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure he probably stole that from Henry Rollins.
Oh,
Rollins used to hold his mic all kinds of crazy ways.
He did.
He also used to wrap the cable around his bicep, and he's like, "Look how fucking rough my bicep is."
Yeah, the iron never lies. Fuck you, Henry. You dork.
I like Henry.
I do too. I'm not gonna lie, I do too.
Yeah, I've seen his spoken word a couple times. Anyway, let's move on to the movie of The Dead Zone. Directed by one Davy Cronenberg.
Oh, big old Davy boy.
Big old Davy boy. He doesn't get as quite weird and gross as you would expect from David Cronenberg, but he does.
No, this is David Cronenberg at perhaps his most subdued.
Yeah. Overall, this movie is relatively subdued. Like, especially compared to the other three we talked about tonight. But like you can still see the talent and like the money he puts into it for no fucking reason. Because the setup,
the fucking World War II scene.
Yeah, the World War II scene is amazing. But
yeah,
just a quick start off is we get Johnny, played by Christopher Walken, a very young
Johnny Smith. Come on, terrible name.
A very young life, Christopher Walken. Before I think, since this is 83, this predates Prophecy, and Prophecy I think is the one film that like people were like, oh, he's a fucking weirdo. Like,
well, this is right after they have to have filmed this right after The Deer Hunter,
right? And that's the other one where like The Deer Hunter was the take him seriously as an actor, and then the Prophecy was like, oh, this guy is a fucking freak. And so
yeah,
he'll do anything, won't he?
Yeah, he's wild.
Yeah, we get Johnny set up with his love Sarah, and she's played by Brooke Adams. I like Brooke Adams in this film. I don't know too much else that I remember her from.
I always get her mixed up with the love interest from Scrooged.
Okay, yeah, and I was just about to say, like, she was obviously cast in a way because she has a very Margot Kidder just look about her and the way she kind of behave. Like, she just reminds you of Karen, like you just said. And I was like, oh yeah, that could be her, but could also be Margot Kidder? No, it's Brooke Adams. You got tricked. You got double tricked.
The reason that I remember her, like the only reason I can distinguish her if I like really picture her face is she was in the 78 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is one of my favorite horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, she's great in this as well. And Tom Skerritt is also in this, and you have Martin Sheen as like kind of
Tom Skerritt, fucking quality. Love that guy.
He's like a good steady just baseline. He'll never steer you wrong. He's gonna get it done. He might not pop, but he's also not gonna steer you wrong. He's not gonna screw you over and be bad.
He's gonna lend gravity. Like he's just serious as a fucking heart attack. I love him.
And then Martin Sheen, who just also undeniable. So
yeah, he's great. Yeah. He's great in everything. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anything Martin Sheen is in that he's not good.
Right. Yeah, if
like I don't really think of him as like, if you gave me, say, name your 100 favorite performers, Martin Sheen would never even come up. But if I really think about it, he's great in everything.
Yeah. If you think you've seen a bad Martin Sheen role, you're wrong. You actually saw Joe Estevez.
Yeah, that's right. You were mistaken, sir.
You made a whoops.
Holy shit. He has 261 credits on IMDb, acting credits on IMDb.
Holy shit, yeah.
That is a high number. I'm trying to think, like, there ain't that many higher than that.
I mean, I think Samuel L. Jackson is probably the all-timer.
I mean, you really have to get... I also am very intrigued to learn, because I did not realize this, not to belabor the point, but Martin Sheen has 2 directing credits as well. He was the director of a movie called Cadence in 1990. And then he did direct one episode of the CBS School Break Special.
Oh, wow.
In 1986. But guess who the star of Cadence in 1990 is?
It's Charlie Sheen.
It is Charlie Sheen, sir. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Emilio wouldn't let his dad direct him, though. He said, no, thank you.
No. He has more sense than that.
Yeah. He said, no, I'm going to do Men at Work, and you don't fucking bother me on set. But solid cast all around. Johnny Smith, like, this movie moves so fucking fast because it doesn't spend a whole lot of time with anything. But you get that, Johnny Smith and Sarah are together. They're planning to wed. But Johnny's also having headaches. And then one night, just as he leaves her at home on a rainy night, he, by chance crashes into a truck. It's goddamn trucks again.
Sons of bitchin' trucks.
Fucking trucks.
They're source of a lot of problems. I mean, guys, I don't want to bring up Maximum Overdrive, but trucks are the whole problem in that movie.
King hates a truck. King loves a 15-minute walkable city. King hates a truck.
Yeah. Hates a truck. Anti-truck across the board.
You probably had just one house where he lived where just horns and trucks were annoying him all the time, and he just took up arms. He's like, fuck
you
truck
just remember
drivers.
A 12-year-old Stephen King just laying in bed with a pillow wrapped around his head, just going, fucking trucks.
I'll show
Fast
them.
forward 60 years, there's a giant fucking bibliography of anti-truck propaganda.
Fucking trucks, man.
Fucking trucks.
But yeah, once Johnny regains consciousness, we learn that he's actually been in a coma for 5 years. And
this is heartbreaking scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it's heartbreaking the way his parents have to reveal everything to him. They have to reveal that Sarah's moved on, and
it's brutal.
And then also he learns that he's gained the ability to see past and present lives for people, and it's these first 2 visions that Cronenberg really fucking nails of the nurse's daughter in the burning house. Just the way it's put together, because it's put together as if Johnny's hospital bed is also in the room in the house with her, and
it makes it disorienting. It communicates just as much as it needs to, but it's also disorienting for the viewer,
right? And because you're not,
and honestly, if you think about it, it's very Cronenbergian too.
Oh yeah, because he just transports you into a space that you're not familiar with, Yeah. Like I said, it's not into the gross body horror that he usually does, but he has no problem disorienting you with where you are and who you're interacting with. And it's also just kind of a great setup, with all the fire around them. Johnny's in his bed, and the bed is on fire, and you can tell the effect is that they cut space for Christopher Walken to kind of pop up from underneath the bed. And his legs are fake torso legs or whatever that are on fire, but it's still effective.
But this is early in the movie for the main character to be on fire,
right? Yeah, exactly.
So you're oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, why is he on fire?
It's a lot going on.
Yeah. So it's a great setup, and then the next one he has is when he touches the hand of his doctor, and he has this grand flashback to World War II. And like this World War II scene is out of fucking control because it's tanks, it's soldiers, it's bombs, there's horses, you have a bunch of extras running around. It's
just like really quickly, they're just like, let's throw a fucking full on World War II scene in.
Yeah.
How much did that fucking cost?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, and like there's so many ways. Like apparently the budget for the film was only $7 million. I mean, that's back in 83.
Yeah.
But still
83. That's a healthy budget, but that's not throw unnecessary World War II scene with horses in budget, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And also just like when you think of the film as a grand scale, just the number of locations they film in, because they're all over the fucking place in this movie. Because again, I believe the book is like almost 450 pages long. So like it's 130,000 some words. Trying to condense that into a 2-hour movie is like,
yeah, it's not even that. This is like a
hour 45.
This is like an hour 4. Yeah, I was gonna say hour 40, hour 45. Like this is a pretty tight movie, and it does show that at times. Like we'll get into it, but like it does like. There's a lot of jumping the fuck around. You know what I mean? This movie almost plays like an anthology in that there's almost like 3 separate stories that are just happen to have some of the same characters in them.
Right.
But,
yeah. Like the connective tissue is Sarah through the whole film, I would say. But then like you have these 3 separate stories of like just kind of the initial like Johnny awakening and coming to his powers. Then the next part you would probably say is like the serial killer part. And then then the ending with Martin Sheen's character of Senator Stilson.
The thing I like about this is this movie gets better as it goes. You know what I mean? Like the first part, like, hey, I'm on board. I love this. Like Christopher Walken's keeping your attention. You're feeling for him. And then the second part with this serial killer, like, oh, fuck. Now we're going into a whole serial killer shit. That's wild. And then the climactic ending is like, it ramps up, and the pacing is just, even though it seems a little disjointed, the pacing is great.
Yeah. Like the other part of this that kind of makes it feel like multiple films is just there's a constant ebb and flow for Johnny. Like he's constantly gaining something, but also losing something at the same time. So like he gains powers, but loses Sarah. He gets this notoriety, but also it comes back to bite him in a way that like he can't teach anymore. He can't operate as a normal person. You know, he tries to like solve a murder, but like in that that's also part of him losing his normal life. So yeah, and then in the end,
his whole life, he just like any amount of normalcy is out the fucking window. The second he realizes what's going on, he like tries to resist it for a second, but it's like, nah, you're fucked.
Yeah, which I think also they do a great job. It's in the subtext, but it's like the determinism of everything, because Johnny has little to no control over his life, but through his visions, he has control over other people's lives. And he can give and take away from other people with his visions, but he can't ever seem to get things right for him. So it feels like things are already determined for him to not win.
Yeah. Like the symbolism of the roller coaster in the opening scene is like, he's just on a fucking ride. And he really doesn't have any control where he begins or ends or how long it takes. Like he's on a fucking ride, and he's kind of a pawn in the game, really.
Yeah. And even though it's ups and downs, it's still just a track controlled ride. So like, you just ride it anyway. You go with it. You can't get out of it. So yeah.
I love that scene though, when he's like, how wild is it to be acting on a roller coaster? Like, I know that sounds a little bit like cliche, but like, that's wild to be like, all right, make sure you do this at this point. Just acting on a roller coaster is such a wild thing to have to do.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like it's probably like an interesting setup that they had to do to put the camera on the front, and then like I wonder if like the boom was like in some way adjusted to the front of the car and had to hang, go up and then hang down. I don't know.
It just reminds me of like this past. I went to Kennywood, the Phantom Fright Nights, last year with Halloween stuff, and me and my cousins, we ate mushrooms and then went to Phantom Fright Nights. went through all the haunts and stuff. It was wild. And like, we went through all the haunts and we were on mushrooms. So we were like, well, this is wild. But then riding a roller coaster on mushrooms was one of the weirdest experiences of my life. Like, I felt like a rag doll being thrown around. And I just imagine like that to a certain extent, because you have to be like hyper vigilant of what your emotions are doing while you're acting. And the way he's like looking around and like being all disoriented, it just like gave me weird PTSD of being high on mushrooms or riding a roller coaster. Oh man.
Yeah. It would be so disorienting. I don't do the roller coasters, so I can't imagine doing them in any other way than sober.
It was so bonkers. It was very strange. It was an experience I'll remember for the rest of my life in a weird way.
Self-induced emotional scarring and psychological trauma.
It was like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Midlife
crisis. I don't know what's happening.
Do things to do things.
Honestly, that's 100% what it was. Yeah. What would it be like if I rode a roller coaster in the dark on mushrooms? rode the Thunderbolt in the dark on mushrooms.
Yeah.
And it's cold too.
Right. Anyway, after the World War II scene, we get more of Johnny, and like he's doing the rehab, but then he gets his first visit from Sarah. And like this is kind of like one of those heartbreaking things, because like he appears reserved to like his fate. Mm-hmm. But also like, he's just still in love with her. Like he has no like recourse, because
so bad. Yeah.
He has no recourse.
In love with her still.
Because like he says like it was just yesterday for me.
Is this the scene too when his dad is like, his dad's there too?
I don't think dad is in that scene. No,
I might be jumping ahead. I just remember a scene I didn't write down, but I remember a scene when.
Oh no, that one's later. That one's later.
Yeah,
that one's much later. No, this is his first. Yeah, this is his first visit from her, and like.
Oh, this is the very first visit after he's out of the coma. Yeah.
And then, like she drives away, and like she's obviously destroyed by it, but like you can't help like the way things.
And he's got the crutches too. It's brutal.
Yeah, he's in the crutches. He's in the halo. He's like explaining. It was just yesterday for me, but like it's been 5 years for you. Like I get your point of view, but also you have to understand where I'm coming from. So
that's the most brutal part about it, is like there's no bad guy
right
in this scenario.
Right.
Like he is totally accepting of her point of view. He understands, he empathizes with her, but it doesn't make it easier for him.
Yeah, and like that's great writing as far as conflict goes, because there is no bad guy, but there is still conflict. Like you can't help it. Yeah. But speaking of bad guy, the next scene is when he's doing the press conference and talking about his powers, and that's where you get this. Yeah. You get the first dribble of like Stilson, because somebody brings it up in the press conference, and I like the way Stilson is kind of dribbled again throughout the story. You see little flashes, you hear like you see it in the papers, he's on billboards, so like there's something building there, but you don't know that yet. So like on first watch, you don't know where this movie's going. It's a little confusing. You're like, where's this going? I'll stick with this love story, I guess. That'll carry me through.
Yeah. Where's Martin Sheen come in? I'm looking for some Martin Sheen. Yeah, he I'll be honest with you, it's probably the first time, because this is only the second time I watched this movie. And I fell in love with it the first time I watched it, but this is the first time I realized that he was more of a through line. First time through, I was like, it just went over my head.
Yeah. I mean, they do their best to like pepper little things, which I'm sure it's more apparent in the book that you get a lot more of that, kind of background noise of like where Johnny is headed. Because like this is where you kind of get, the idea of like he can do some good with his powers. And I believe it's shortly after this scene. Yeah. So what happens is, Johnny's mother dies from watching this press conference. and the way he, it just upsets her to a point. She's a very religious Irish lady. So like all this craziness isn't for her mind to comprehend, and she dies. It's too much. She dies. Yeah. But after this loss for Johnny is when he first gets presented by Tom Skerritt the idea of helping find the serial killer.
Yeah, and the serial killer, like, I'll be honest with you, the first time I watched this, I did not see that, like, who the serial killer is. I kind of didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. Like, they did a pretty good job of, like, I don't want to say hiding it, but, like, I don't know. I guess I thought it was going to be more predictable. This movie is definitely an underviewed, like, I think it has a reputation at this point of, like, being kind of underappreciated. So I underestimated it. And I was just like, oh, it's going to be somebody more predictable.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and
so I wasn't like paying close. Like I just underestimated it.
Yeah, because I mean they don't, like I said, it's all in the way they dribble things out. Because you get this scene in Christmas time where Tom Skerritt is asking to help find the serial killer, but then it's kind of dropped for a bit because you get another visit from Sarah, and this is where you're talking about that scene with the father. Because Sarah comes to visit
Christmas time.
Sarah comes to visit with her son, and like you have kind of like this emotional get together between her and Johnny. Like they even wind up having sex together, and then they're at the dinner table with her with Johnny's father, and he says it's nice to have have a family eating around this table again. Which that's the heart-wrenching kind of like rip.
Because the mom's dead, right. And it's fucking brutal.
Yeah. The mom's dead. The son isn't really theirs. Like it's not it's not what he thinks it is, and it's just that one little misstep. Again, no one's a villain, but it's the nail on the head of like, ugh.
Yeah, this could have been you guys, if not for this one faithful instance.
Right. But yeah, from that, Johnny, this is the one kind of loose tie that doesn't feel quite as good, because Johnny goes from this to investigating the serial killer, and it doesn't quite gel in that progression. But like I'm sure there's something more in the book that gives it to you. That like why does he now decide to help when he wasn't really into it when first pitched the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I took it as like he kind of came to the realization even early on when they had their first kind of visit and stuff. He was like kind of holding on to the idea that things could potentially go back to what he remembered. And then this instance, really, it hit home for him. It's like, it's never going to be what I want it to be.
Right. And so he just kind of resigns himself to being almost like a circus act of like,
I'm a vessel at this point.
Right.
Like I'm just going to try to be of service in some way.
Yeah. And so they investigate the serial killer, and he has like another flashback I think I like the scene at the gazebo where like he's desperate to see his face, but also like he's like confused about it because he's like, I was there. And it's like, no, you're not there. You're having a thing.
He's like almost like trying to turn away, kind of, and he like pulls her, shirt open and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't want to be a voyeur to the crime, but at the same time he is. And I think it's also because he's touching a dead body that he can only see the past in this instance, even though he's seen the past before. Like he can only see the past. And so he's just like exists, with her at the same time of her murder. But yeah, it gets revealed that it's the Tom Skerritt's old deputy guy. And they gotta go get him.
Old Deputy Dewey or whatever the fuck his name is. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's Dodd, Deputy Dodd.
I just said Dewey because he fucking screamed.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because he is like he's kind of a doofy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, you go back the second time around, you start to see a little bit of the breadcrumbs, but like upon first watch, like I said, I probably underestimated the movie a little bit, but I was just like, oh, it's, oh, wait, it was the fucking doofy deputy that was just in the background the whole time. Yeah.
But like, I love the scene in the house because it's, I mean, it's shot the most like a horror film because there's just like these sick giallo green lights everywhere. And then the house looks disgusting. Everything in the house is disgusting. You go in the killer's room and it's like, because he's still living with his mother, but like, it's not even updated for an adult because he has like all the cowboys on horseback as wallpaper. It's a little kid's room, yeah. And he has like a bunch of little kid stuff everywhere. And the killer fucking suicides himself by headbutting scissors.
But like not even headbutting, like through his mouth.
Yeah.
Like through the roof of his mouth, kind of like, it's rough.
It's more deep throating scissors is what he goes for.
Yeah, which is the most like effective part of it is like the deliberate nature in which he goes through with it is like suggests that he mentally rehearsed this a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Like when I get caught or if I get caught, here's what I'm going to do. So it was like him carrying out a plan that he had mentally rehearsed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the way out.
And that was, and this was not like I'm going to take my service revolver and shoot myself. Like for some reason in my deranged fucking serial killer brain, this is how I have to go through with it.
Yeah. The other thing I love in this scene though is Christopher Walken grabs the mother's hand and just the way he delivers this line, it's like a little unhinged because he's just like, you know, didn't you? You know?
Yeah. And then she gets fucking, which, the fucking actor, I've already forgot his name, but the sheriff just shoots her in the tummy, right in the tummy.
Yeah, just gut shots her. Yeah, she grabs up her son's service revolver, shoots Johnny, and then Tom Skerritt pops out of the bedroom and fucking blasts her right in the guts.
Just gut shots her, just like a fucking dog. Like Jesus Christ, shoots the mom in the gut.
It's so
brutal.
Yeah, it's so terrible. Yeah. But again, this is what throws Johnny into those throws, and then we start kind of the third story in the ending of he gets approached by this really rich kind of I don't even know what he does. He's just rich. He's just white and rich. That's his thing.
Yeah, I mean, you almost take it like he's some sort. It's like some old money shit, old white fucking rich family in town.
Yeah. But just quickly before that, Johnny's doctor does give him a visit, and in that visit, there's a scene where he gets out of the car and they're erecting a Stilson billboard behind him. So it's just like another little breadcrumb.
When he has the, I think it was earlier. Is it earlier when he has the conversation with the doctor about like, if you could go back to before Hitler went to power or whatever?
No, that's the scene right before. That's the scene before he shoots him. We're not there yet. I think this scene is more along the lines of just like getting an update of where Johnny's life is because he's living in a new house. And then I think that also explains like his headaches are eventually going to kill him, but it's not as clear. So I think that's another hang up I have is like, it's just never as clear that like his powers are actually going to lead to his death at some point.
No, it's not. It just feels like now you have a superpower and this is what you're going to live with.
Because I think it is clear in the book that he has a fucking tumor and he's going to die from the tumor, which is ultimately.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Good. And I think that ultimately lends to why it's more easy for him to take up arms against Stilson because he's kind of doomed anyway.
Oh, that does actually make a lot more sense.
Yeah. And it's just not as clear.
Because you're like, and we're jumping way ahead, but the ending feels so very convenient that the fact that he survives, but then Stilson, even though he doesn't kill him, gets ruined. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the whole thing, the fact that he took this enormous risk to say, to rid the world of Stilson feels very convenient the way it plays out. But if we knew that he was, doomed via this prognosis, it would have made more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot more clear in the book that he has like a tumor and it's going to eventually kill him. There's only this little conversation like way before we're ever introduced to Stilson or anything. So if there was just like in that scene that you were talking about where his doctor visits him and he's asking about, does Hitler, like, would you kill Hitler if you had the chance? Like if there was more to that scene about like, here's a fucking MRI, you got fucking pudding brain. Sorry about it, bud.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There was a little more to it, but
yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we get introduced to this kind of, upper crust waspy guy, and he just wants Johnny to be a tutor. And this is kind of the trail that leads Johnny to interacting with Stilson, because he sees Stilson in this rich guy's home, and then they have like a conversation about him. And like the rich guy's like, he's a bit of a fucking vox populi kind of guy. Like he's dangerous. He's like, why are you nice to him? And he's like, well, you got to be nice to these guys or otherwise they cut you out of the boat club or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, he has another vision of like this guy's son drowning, and he's like, hey, don't take him to hockey practice. But he listens. He doesn't let his son get drowned, but like 2 other kids drowned.
Well, and this is my favorite scene in the movie when he's like, he's 100% confident in his visions at this point.
Right.
So he's trying to tell him like, my dude, don't take him to the hockey game. The ice is going to break. It's too thin, whatever. And of course the guy, like he would be skeptical. Why would you ever believe, somebody who has had these prophetic visions kind of thing? But then he takes, I think it's a fire poker, and he smashes the fucking vase. He's like, the ice is going to break.
Yeah.
He's just like, it's this like so over the top reaction, which in that instance, you would feel so frustrated and helpless that you're like, I need to make a big gesture.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
To really get this across, even if it's at the risk of completely alienating myself and like making an ass of myself and even being, viewed as like a danger. Like as long as I get the message across, that's all that matters.
Right.
But it's Christopher Walken, so it's fucking, he just
just the way he sells it,
the fuck out of it.
Just the way he sells it is even more. So like he has that, total breakdown, but like again, he's proven right. So Johnny is not afraid of his visions. He knows what they're going to do, but it's after this that he finally interacts hand to hand with Stilson, and he gets the vision of the world ending, via nuclear war. And so he has this breakdown conversation with his doctor of like, what would you do? And he sees, he takes kind of one last look at his parents, picks up a gun and goes to the Stilson meeting. And the whole time, like Sarah is also involved with this Stilson campaign. So she's there with her son. They're all on stage.
Yeah.
And when he goes to take
Isn't it like her husband's involved with the campaign or some shit?
Her husband's out there like doing flyer campaigns and
or whatever,
going to people's houses.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Johnny picks up the gun, he fucking goes to shoot him, and fucking somebody calls out gun, giving Stilson just enough time to grab up the baby.
Such a wild thing to do.
It's so crazy. Just like duck and cover, run with the baby, and you just know, like, what the end to that is like a whole bunch of people have a picture of him holding a baby to cover from gunfire now.
It's just so, like, I get it that this is supposed to be like a really dramatic, interpretation of somebody who is just like an absolute scum of the earth. We've already seen him in the visions. He is a fucking sociopath, through and through. But to be like, there's a gun, and go, Jesus Christ, give me a baby.
Right. Like all the things.
Not like a fucking duck behind the podium. No, hold up a baby
and run for it.
Not like you're holding a baby and you like spin around in a way that like the baby is in danger. You grab a baby from somebody and block yourself with the baby.
Yeah, not the face, hit the baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, then Johnny is shot out of the balcony and falls, and Stillson grabs him up, and like he gets one last vision of Stillson killing himself with looking at the magazine cover of him holding the baby for a shield. So Johnny gets to die easy, knowing that he did save the world, but also you get kind of one more heartbreaking scene between him and Sarah, just knowing that this is the way things had to go. And there couldn't have been another way, because Johnny didn't have anybody with vision powers to save him. So,
yeah. The great thing about this is you as the viewer you trust Johnny at this point, right? Because you're up to speed with Johnny. Mm-hmm. So, but everything that has come to fruition with Johnny, although it is extraordinarily unlikely, it seems that there is a very minute chance that Johnny's predictions were coincidence. Mm. So like the hockey game and the kids fell through the ice, like he guessed that, and then the guy didn't go, and then the kid got safe, but then the guy didn't acknowledge him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like there's a small chance in your brain that like you're on the same page with Johnny. So perhaps if you're seeing it from Johnny's perspective, this whole thing could have been kind of blown up to make his quote unquote, potential delusions feel more real. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So whenever the assassination attempt comes into play, as a viewer, you're not 100% on Johnny's side. You're like 90% on Johnny's side. Because you're like, this seems like a thing a crazy person does.
Yeah, it's a thing that a crazy person does. And
assassinating politicians is a thing crazy people do.
Right. And also you've already had the interaction between him and the guy he works as a tutor for. Mm-hmm. Kind of feeding Johnny the idea that Stillson is a bad guy. Like he's already fed him that idea.
So you're like 10% of you is like, wait, is Johnny actually crazy? So you're like, you're kind of on the fence, just even a 10%.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that sticks out, because everything else is kind of like could have been coincidence, is like the fire could have been a good guess.
Yeah.
The hockey accident could have been a good guess, but it's knowing that Frank Dodd, the deputy, was the killer is.
Yeah. I mean, it seems entirely unlikely that he's not, doesn't have some sort of gift at this point. But even like the first one, with the, not the killer, not the, you just don't know if it's like, is this happening in retrospect? You know what I mean? Like, is his brain warped to some degree where it's like, he's then in retrospect talking himself into, I knew all the time. You know what I mean? Like it just, you're mostly, the story has told us that he has this gift, but you're like, he's kind of an unreliable narrator still. So you're, everything's pointing to he's got the right idea, but it's not 100%.
Yeah. I think
so.
The other side of this is like, because this film is, like in the 80s, the thing is like, there's so little of like an information network. So like, I think I know there's been more recent remakes, but I haven't seen any of them. But like in the more recent remakes, I'm sure you can play with the idea of like being able to look things up on the internet, like having knowledge. Because like when he does at the press conference, he's talking to that one guy about his sister's suicide. That is like a direct cold reading type of John Edwards bullshit that can be dismissed.
Sure.
Is like something he could have just looked up on the internet that, hey, I know this guy is going to be at the press conference. Oh, his sister committed suicide. I'll just say something about that and fuck with him.
Yeah.
So like you can do that kind of muddying of the water of like, but like with this version, it feels so hard to like pull off that unknowable knowledge type thing.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it. And again, it's just another character with The Shining anyway. So
yeah. And that's the, it's The Shining or the Dead Light or, whatever. Like I always find it interesting that like Stephen King is able to just like repackage things that are very established. Probably fair to say tropes in genre film and repackage them as something like slightly more mystifying. And everyone's like, Stephen King created this. It's like, nah, not really. No. But he just does it better than most.
Yeah, no, we've had bum ass psychics forever. It's just he made this one interesting with a character.
Yeah.
I'm so glad all of these movies like came out a long time ago and that they've been pre-established, because I feel like if he had just started adapting movies now with this Shining through line, you would have wound up with like this Marvel cinematic ass universe, and like Scatman Carruthers appears in all of them. Like
well, and that's just like a Scatman Carruthers, yeah. Well, it's not what's his name? It's not fucking Scatman Carruthers. It's it is. Scatman, you're right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about this just goes to show how much of a genius, even though maybe it wasn't predicted, this is like a happy accident, how genius the whole like Dollar Baby thing ultimately ended up being to his brand, is he got everyone and their brother to make a movie based on his work.
Right.
And they're all so variable. Now, maybe if he wouldn't have done that, maybe he'd end up with a fucking Marvel universe under his belt and $1 billion. But like, let's be honest, Stephen King ain't fucking hurting.
I'm pretty sure he has $1 billion anyway.
He's been fucking wildly wealthy since the fucking mid 80s. Right. You know what I mean? So no one's hurting over there. But yeah, it's just, I think it has helped to maintain his integrity as an influence for motion pictures, because you get all these different people making a lot of variable pictures of varying styles, of varying qualities, whatever, just because, he didn't take the really shitty, greedy direction.
Right.
And said like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And like, hey, you could be cynical and say it was a great marketing move, and it was, but I mean,
fuck, even through the late 90s and early 2000s, when it was, the miniseries was like the required watching. Like you had to sit down and watch the latest Stephen King miniseries. That's why Mike Flanagan just fucking apes off King so much. Like, he loves adapting King movies. He loves making movies that are like King movies, but then also he does this House of Usher and the the Haunting at Hill House or whatever, and he's like, these are my miniseries. I'm Rose Red now. Fuck you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's do some authors that are dead and nobody will remember. Too,
I can steal these. Nobody reads this shit. This is mine.
But he did a good job. All right. Any other final thoughts on these here flickies?
No, like I said, I just like I like the determinism. Like I like how quick the Dead Zone moves, and I just like how fun the Mist can be. even though it becomes the most brutal thing you've ever seen. It's they all of these films are exercises in balance, and I think they all do balance pretty well. But like, yeah, these are my favorites ones, and yours are your favorites ones.
Yeah, like I said, I think all four of these are bangers. I mean, listen, no secret. If you listen to last episode, I wanted to do the Dead Zone, although I am happy ultimately that because I do think there's more disjointed nature to the Dead Zone from a novel adaptation standpoint than there is even to like Gerald's Game. Neither of them are perfect. Mm-hmm. But I do like that one a lot. And yeah, I mean, these are four fucking movies that I've watched multiple times and I will watch multiple times more. These are all great fucking flicks, and like yeah, we'll see what the listeners have to say when we put them out on the social medias to vote. So if you don't already, the people who are listening right now are the folks who we want to hear what they have to say in terms of Steve's tag team, if you will, of the Mist and the Dead Zone, and my tag team of Pet Sematary and Gerald's Game. If you don't already, go over to the old social medias, Instagram specifically at Halloween is Forever, or at Hallow Forever on Twitter /X, and go vote and tell us which one of these sons of bitchin' tag teams you like best. And ultimately what you're going to help determine is who is going to pick the punishment episode for next time around. Steve already hinted at what his is going to be. I've got a couple of fucking tricks up my sleeves over here as well. Yeah, so go check it out and tell us what you think, and vote on the old polls over there. Anything else I should mention here, Steve?
If you
before we wrap this
if you sign up on the Patreon this week, you'll get an extra vote. That's a thing. Don't ever forget that. You can always have an extra vote to add to the pool.
You can have an extra vote. You can also hear us talk about Fast and the Furious Part 7.
Yeah, boy.
Which came out last week, and then here in the coming weeks we'll be doing Fast. What did you say it's called?
Fate of the Furious.
Fate of the Furious. Jesus fucking Christ! There's no way that movie is an absolute dog shit, you guys. All right, yeah, go ahead and follow us over there. Check us out on the patreon.com/Halloween's Forever. As always, all right. I think that's all we have here. I got about a half a beer to finish, and then I'm going to bed, guys. Thank you for joining us for another Showdown episode. And if you have any suggestions as far as those mini-sodes as well, we're always looking for those. If you got a new movie coming out that you're like, hey, wish them boys would talk about, check out over on the streaming services or wherever the hell it is, shoot us a DM. We always appreciate that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, any final thoughts?
Well, we got one last from the patrons. Ron says Killer Clowns win.
I am here for it. And listen, I got my fucking blaster up here, my Killer Clowns blaster. I'm down for Killer Clowns. Are we talking specifically Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or are we talking about just the topic of Killer Clown movies?
I think it's both.
I will talk Killer Clowns all day, every day. But also we'll talk just Killer Clowns without the K's. Yeah. Killer with a K, Clowns with a C. And listen, we'll talk about Clown NATO if you guys want to. We'll get into that son of a bitch. I have sat by myself, very stoned, in a Holiday Inn Express and watched Clown NATO. That's where I'm at in my life.
Here's the thing. If you can get Patreon subscribers in the month of February, we will just make March Clown Madness.
Clown
and
Madness.
we'll do a Clown Showdown in March if you get some more Patreon subscribers.
I am down for that 100%. I'm a fucking clown fiend, guys. So I will be all over that. All right, I gotta pee like a racehorse, guys. This has been a fantastic Showdown episode for the Halloween is Forever crew. I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve in King.
All right. And King. All right, see you around. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.